This is okay. Thank you.
Do you want to pin yourself?
You're actually going to be in the recording now.
So I
That was my son helping me out. Yeah, thank you.
There you go.
Yeah.
Bye-bye. See you later.
See ya. Thanks. All right. Thank you, Jessica, for being here.
Of course, of course. I'm
Now
excited.
we just need to sit here and wait to see how many people show up.
There we go. That's perfect.
All right. So for now, we can just, stop video and muting, and
Okay.
just come back at 12. All
Perfect.
right.
Sounds good. Okay. See you in a couple minutes.
See you in a couple minutes. All right. Hi, everybody. Welcome to my first live YouTube stream. This is so exciting. I would like to introduce my beautiful, wonderful moderator, Jessica Kreiser. She's going to be the one reading your questions to me. Before we start the stream, I just want to make sure that we are oriented to what's going on. And in DBT, those of you who are therapists and those of you who are clients of DBT therapists, you of course know we need to first orient to whatever is going to be happening before we can indeed jump into doing it. So orientation on what is going to be happening. Today, I'll be answering your questions. We may have parents here, we may have therapists here, we may have Actually, adolescents and young adults here, welcome. You are more than welcome to join us. There'll be people asking questions about their parenting, about what to do with their kids. There will be adolescents and young adults asking about their relationships with their own parents and what to do and how to deal with some of the issues that they have with those relationships. So we may have a whole smorgasbord of questions. And Jessica is going to be reading them to me. She will be selecting the most relevant questions. However, please be aware that if I cannot answer all of the questions, and I don't know how many people are going to be here today, maybe I'll answer all of them, maybe not all of them. And I have what I self-diagnosed as verbal diarrhea, meaning that I can talk about one question for hours, literally, and I will try to contain myself, but it is what it is. And also, please be aware that for me to answer questions, a lot of the time, I first need to give you what's called bird eye view, kind of like step away from the specific question and orient you to some of the aspects that you need to know before you can understand my answer. So that's why my answers a lot of the time don't contain yes and no or something very brief, and it may indeed be prolonged. So I definitely probably will not be able to answer all of the questions. However, we will take note of all of the questions that you have. And I will use that information for us to be able to continue to communicate on the topics that are interesting and important to you. And I will take this information and I will be devising the topics from my other videos that I'm posting on YouTube with that information in mind. So these are some of the things that I wanted to make sure that let me see if I actually have a list of things that I wanted to make sure that I discussed and orient. Yeah, that's pretty much all it is. So Jessica, next first question.
All right. So, Francesca, you often refer to children with, emotional and behaviorally dysregulated children as supersensors. What exactly does that mean?
A wonderful question. So, by the way, the parenting that I'm teaching, okay, bird eye view. This is not only for parents of children who are supersensors, and I'll define that in a second. This is for any parents of children with any issues or without issues. Pretty much the model that I am offering to the world is how to become a super parent. And I would imagine that any child will benefit with, a parent who is a super parent. Also, a big portion of what I am presenting, big portion of the model is not only on what to do with the kids and how to help them. Huge portion of that is how to help yourself so that you can indeed gain the capacity to do all of this wonderful strategies and procedures that are involved in super parenting. Because knowing what to do is one thing, necessary but not sufficient. You also need to gain the capacity to apply that, right? So this is information for people who are just thinking about becoming parents. Listen, we need to get a license to fish, but for some reason, we don't need to get educated on how to be a parent. And I always joke that I cannot understand really how people can dare to become parents without first getting a Ph.D. in clinical child psychology. Serious. That is a lot of guts, right? To think that we all can be wonderful parents and will know what to do and how to address their needs. Okay, with that said, so this is for people who are just thinking about becoming a parent, parents with young children, doesn't really matter, 2 years old, 1 year old, right? Pre-adolescent children, adolescents, young adults who have failure to launch, or if you're 80 and your child is 60, you still need to know how to validate. You still need to know how to get the relationship going so it's conducive to indeed giving to each other and have a relationship in which you enjoy each other's company. And all of it is here. All of this information I can offer to you. Now, going back to who is a supersensor? Supersensor this is a term derived from an analogy of a super taster, for example, right? A person has a lot of taste bud in their palate, and they can appreciate the nuances of the food and the smell and the texture, and they can become wonderful food critics, and they can become chefs. Two sides to everything. The other side to that, they cannot eat, spicy foods, right? And a little burger or hot dog ain't gonna suffice, right? So two sides to everything. We always have challenges and benefits when we talk about super sensors. Now, what are the challenges of being a super sensor? These are the people, these are children, adults, adolescents. Super sensors is not only applying to children. No, this is just how the person is born. What they are born with is this emotional apparatus, so to speak, that is so reactive that they don't have emotional waves, they have emotional tsunamis, meaning that little things bug them. Somebody did not look at me right. It can be external event that other people could not even able to notice. It can be an internal event, a thought, a memory of some kind, and it can be minute. And that minute event that to other people is not observable. That's why a lot of the time parents are telling me, I have no idea what's going on, why he was having this reaction. Nothing was happening. Well, something was happening. We just didn't see it. Now, that minute event can produce a whole tsunami, meaning it's low threshold for occurrence of an outburst. When something happens, they go from 0 to 100. They go from 0 to 100 in a split second, and they have slow return to baseline, meaning that they may continue to fume for 10 minutes, 20 minutes, an hour, 2 hours, sometimes even longer. These are the challenges. Now, everything has two sides. What are the gifts, the benefits of being a super sensor? Being able to also experience positive emotions on a high level, right? When they get happy, they get really happy, and sometimes get so happy they get silly, right? Now, they are able to read other people's emotions like human x-rays. Now, they may misinterpret what they're reading, that is true, but they are highly attuned to other people's emotional experiences because of their own emotional apparatus. And because of that, they can be highly empathic, highly understanding, very caring, because they know themselves what it feels like to be in pain. Again, in between outbursts, in the moments of calm, right? There are two sides here, right? In the moment of an outburst, when they're very angry, when somebody is trying to control them, or somebody is not giving them what they want, or something else is happening, what I call it's a prehistoric monkey coming out to claim the control, right? And all bets are off because they get so emotionally intoxicated, right? For all intended purposes, this is an emotional intoxication, right? That pretty much they cannot understand what's going on. They are drunk with that emotion. In between of those outbursts, they can be indeed most empathic and wonderful and caring human beings. Also, we have so much research done on that. Supersensitivity is linked to high level of creativity. These kids are very creative, right? And that creativity can be, pronounced in many ways, in poetry, in dance, in writing things, in just thinking outside the box. They have different brains, right? They don't think like an average emotional person, right? And they can see, things that other people cannot see because they have very high highs and very low lows. So have a much better range, more information points, right? If you can think about all poets, all writers, actors, they're all super sensors. If you read their biographies, and of course, they have something to tell us that we may not necessarily experience, and they have, and therefore we want to read them, we want to understand them. That's exciting and wonderful for us. So what are we here to do? We are here to give our super sensors emotion regulation muscles, attention muscles, right? cognitive restructuring muscles, all of those muscles, so that they can withstand the challenges of the emotional tsunamis and benefit from all of the gifts, all of the talents that come along in a package with being Supersenser. And this is the mission.
All right, wonderful. I just want to note too that there's a lot of people here from all over the world. So welcome. We're all glad that you're here.
So happy. This is my first stream. I had no idea how many people will show up. I go like maybe one, maybe two. Thank you so much. I am honored for all of your presence.
Yes. So a question that came in has DBTC been done in a partial hospital program for children?
So DBTC, yes, has empirical support. I conducted 2 randomized clinical trials. One in outpatient setting at Weill Cornell Medicine when I was a faculty there. And another one at residential care center. This is for children who are so unsafe to keep at home, unfortunately, that they needed to have an environment in which they can be kept safe, right? And this is residential care where they can be there for, unfortunately, longer than just the usual hospitalization of a couple of weeks, sometimes 8 months, sometimes 2 years, right? Average residential care is 2 years. So the 2 randomized trials that I have done demonstrated that DBTC, as compared to treatment as usual, has not only statistical significant difference in outcomes, but also, most importantly, clinical significance between outcomes. And we were able to see that children were coming in and their parents pretty much ripping their hair out of their head because these children, they can really enhance the happiness. They make everything big, right? They make the happy moments big and they make the miserable moments big, right? They can suck all the air out of the lives of the family. Unfortunately, that is so. And those parents coming in and they didn't know what to do. Like they were saying, yeah, I want to throw myself out of the balcony, right? They were able to see very rapid change. And that what kept them in therapy, because in the DBTC condition, we had zero dropout rate in comparison to almost 40% dropout rate in treatment as usual. And the changes that we saw in the emotional and behavioral problems, we were able to do without meds. That was absolutely incredible. We did not think that that's going to happen, but what we actually saw is that, randomly, 4 children on medication already were randomized into the DBTC condition. And only those children either were kept on the medication or treated from the medication, as compared as 4 times more kids in treatment as usual continued to be on meds and more meds were added. And even with that, there was huge difference in outcomes. 95% of kids in DBTC condition have 95% have actually achieved significant difference. They were either much better or better than at the baseline, right? In comparison to 45% in treatment as usual. And very similar results were in the residential care. Very similar results. We're able to demonstrate exactly that. And one of the most important things that came out of this research also was specifically for residential care. Children and parents in the outpatient were coming in and they saw results. And therefore they wanted to continue to have more knowledge on the intervention because they were hungry for something, and that was actually working. Unfortunately, parents with children in residential care had this attitude, here, fix it, we're out. We had such tremendous difficulty getting parents in. My therapists were bending backwards saying, please, call me, I'll talk to you on the phone. When you're here to see your child on the weekends, I'll be there to discuss it with you, whatever it is. Wasn't happening. And the changes that we observed, and we were looking at reports of the milieu staff, they functioned as parents for those kids because they were there with them, and they were trained in the parental component in exactly the same way that I was training parents in the outpatient study. So they were trained, they knew what they were doing. So we had their report, we had teachers' report, we had parent report. Teachers were not trained because they were with both children, right, in a treatment as usual and in DBTC. So we couldn't train them because that would be contamination of treatment conditions. And parents were just not coming in. And what we saw, significant, tremendous improvement for children in DBTC condition. As for staff report, no change for teachers, no change for parents. DBTC sees, and there's empirical evidence for it now, the main mechanism of change is parents. Imagine that. If somebody has a computer with malware, if you give this computer to somebody to fix and return it back in the fixed condition to a person who continues to put malware in, what's going to happen? Same thing, right? Same problem. So DBTC is teaching parents to become therapists for their kids. Treatment ends not when the child is all better. Treatment ends when parents know what they're doing, are doing it consistently, and I can see things are good. And I say, all right, bye-bye. I'm going to see you once in a while for booster sessions because now you are indeed the coach and therapist for your child. All I want in DBT for children is one parent who is willing, who is informed of what they're getting themselves into, and who's committed to do all of that. Two parents who are on the same page and coming in is a luxury. A child on top of it who is committed, interested in coming in and actually participating instead of doing, I don't know, I don't care, right? That's a luxury and top luxury. Sometimes I don't even see kids in treatment, even though a child continues to be our client, right? Sometimes they refuse to come in. Not a problem. If I have one parent who is willing, here we go. We can do a lot of changes. And this is the model. Child is the client, whether I ever see the child in my office. But parents are the main tools of therapy, main tools of therapy. And that's why I took this entire DBTC parenting component, plucked it out of the treatment, and now I'm offering it to the world as Super Parenting 101 course that is from April to September of every year. And I teach my parents in exactly the same form and fashion as I teach therapists. It's just the information is a little bit simplified and condensed, of course. Part 1, 12 weeks, external controlling factors, my relationship with the external environment. What to do, skills, validation, contingency management, all of this stuff. Part 2, 12 weeks, internal controlling factors, my relationship with me. How to indeed decrease vulnerability in sense of self-love, safety, and belonging. Screaming, yelling, suicidality, self-harm, using drugs, alcohol, these are not problems. These are symptoms of problems. These are solutions to problems. Problems come from my relationship with me. If I hate myself, I'm going to self-harm and self-punish. If I cannot control the only thing I can, me, I will try to do what? Try to control other people. Don't say this. Don't stand there. If only you'd given that to me, I would feel better right now. And I would not have had that temper outburst, making other people responsible for the way they feel, think, and do things. Right? And if I don't feel comfortable in my own skin, if I don't belong with me, how can I indeed make, initiate and maintain healthy relationship with other people, all the social problems? So this is what's being taught. And all of that is the capacity to implement all of the information in part 1 of the training when you are learning what to do. And then part 2 is how to actually be prepared to do this and how to teach that to your kids. Because the main goal of parenting is not to give your children shelter and food and drag them to extracurricular activities. That's nice and merry. However, the main goal as a parent is indeed raise a child so that they love themselves as they are, unconditionally, just because they exist. are able to control the only thing they can, what I do, what I feel, what I think, my biology. And they are indeed able to belong with others through the main mechanism of giving. That's the only way we can indeed maintain relationship with other people in a healthy way. We need to give. But how can I give to other people if I don't first give to myself? And this is one of the things that we teach. All right, my verbal diarrhea again happened. Okay, next question.
There's lots of great questions coming in, and the next one I want to share looks like it's coming from a dependent. So what should you do if you're dependent on your parents, but they discount your problems and refuse therapy? Is there a good way to persuade them, or do you just have to work on yourself in isolation?
Well, this is a very important question and a very hard one. Unfortunately, and again, bird eye view, parenting is about protection. Parents are the only protectors that we have, and we need that protection. We need that sense of safety, right? This is for our ability to be able to feel more or less comfortable in this very unpredictable world. So we need our parents as those protectors. Who else is to protect us? Our spouses? Our friends? What, our children? No, we need that protection, and parents are the ones who protect us. You are 80, your child is 60, you're still a protector. And even when your parents, pass away, they still continue to maintain that, protective role because of what has happened before, because you felt that protection. So this is a child, parents always need to be here, protectors. Sometimes parents want to be friends to their kids. Number one, you cannot be really a friend to your kid. Number two, then you're on the same level. You lose your role as a protector. Your child is without protection. Now, even worse than that, a lot of the time parents become accommodators. I fully understand validation. These children can be quite hard to deal with. And a lot of the time we want to avoid outbursts because it sucks all the air out of the family. And then parents start to tiptoe around the kid, right? And that is an accommodation. So basically, kid is calling all the shots. So now they're not even, forget protectors. They're not friends. They are servants to the kid. And then the last level is level of perpetrator. This is the one when parents are themselves are aggressors, when they're, invalidating their children harmfully, when they're criticizing, judging, screaming, prolonged inappropriate punishment, verbal abuse, God forbid, sexual abuse, right? But we're not even talking about that kind of invalidation, this whole traumatic invalidation when we have, verbal, physical, and sexual abuse. We're even talking just about harmful invalidation of criticism and judgment. And you don't even have to tell your child you are an idiot, right? When you say, why the hell did you do this? That already implies you're an idiot. And what you've done is an empirical evidence of why you're an idiot, right? All of this is harmful. All of this is indeed puts you on a level of being a perpetrator. And then it's terrible. Why? Because not only your child is without a protector, other people may be aggressing towards your kid, but he still has you for protection. It's much less damaging. But if the only protector I have is the one who is the perpetrator, that is PTSD. This is complex trauma. So what I'm hearing from the question, again, you see bird eye view for me to be able to explain my answer, is that a child who is having relationship with parents in which they don't feel protected, and possibly those parents not only not protectors, but they may actually be perpetrators because they are harmfully invalidating the child. What to do in that situation? And if those parents are not willing to do therapy, and a lot of the time, unfortunately, it happens that way, unfortunately, you need to accept you are without protection. This is terrible. And everything needs to have two sides, right? We need protection from others, but also we need protection from ourselves, right? That we make ourselves. Everything has two sides. And for us to be balanced in this life and not get stuck, we always need to balance two sides of the equation. The two sides of the equation here, protection from parents and learning how to protect yourself. unfortunately, in this circumstance, you're on your own. You need to learn how to protect yourself and that sense of safety. You need to learn how to directly influence what you do, what you feel, what you think, your biology. You need to learn on restructuring the way you think. You need to work on improving your relationship with you, which I would imagine is damaged, because I would imagine that unfortunately the parenting that you may have sustained made your sense of self-love very vulnerable, made it conditional on being a good girl or a bad boy, or a good boy, right? um of course, when we don't have protectors, our sense of safety as children goes out of the window, right? And also, if I don't even belong with my own family, with my own parents who's supposed to love me and protect me just because I exist, what kind of sense of belonging can I have? So all of that, a lot of the time, is damaged on a clinical level, and all of this needs to be worked on. And unfortunately, it's not going to be as great and wonderful if you had both protection from parents and able to do it for yourself. You are indeed one-sided with that. And there is an end to it. The transaction between parents and children, it's not a one way. Parents are influencing and programming children. Children are influencing and programming parents, right? So you can indeed, over time, once you develop a different relationship with you, once you start to give to yourself self-love, self-validation, self-reinforcement, self-control, self-care, cognitive self-restructuring, self-compassion, all of these things, we call it bake your own bread. Once you start to do that and change your relationship with you, you will be able to start giving to other people immediately, and including your parents. And you know what's going to happen over time? Immediately, of course, your parents are going to change in relationship with you, bi-directional. Is it going to be easy? Absolutely not. Is it going to be hard? Absolutely. All the um, um, strategies, the formulas that actually do work are simple, but not easy. The dialectic.
Right. If my child tells me in confidence that they've self-harmed in the past, how can I best supplement and help them while being emotionally sensitive to what they might be going through?
Beautiful, wonderful question. Very first thing, never, ever punish your children for either telling you about self-harm or suicidal ideation, or if they show it, or if they do it, or if they, whatever. Never. Because you want for them to come to you with these issues. If you punish them, they will not come to you. You're actually increasing danger. You want to make sure that your children talk to you about this so you can prevent them doing something, dangerous. So never ever punish it. When they come to you and talk about this, do not make a big deal out of this. Do not get hysterical. Do not get dramatic. This is okay, your child came to you and said, Mom, I had a fight with my friend. And you're like, all right, tell me more about this. As simple as that. Don't give it a lot of attention. Don't make it something bigger than it needs to be. Self-harm, suicidality are solutions to problems. That's it. Your child chose those solutions because unfortunately it works. And supersensors in particular, they have a different brain. And for them, hurting actually makes them feel less of this emotional suffering, because they are transforming emotional pain into physical pain. And physical pain is much more controllable than emotional, right? Our sense of safety. And that's what they're doing it. And for them, it actually works to decrease emotional arousal. They have done studies on that. One of those studies was done in Germany. They were not allowed to do this study here in America. They didn't even publish that paper, and I'll tell you why, but it's very telling. So what they did, they put people who have what's called borderline personality disorder, and they're all supersensors, and people who are normal controls. They put them in scanners, right? And they were scanning their brain. And as they were laying in scanners, there were research assistants that would cut them. You know why it was not even published in America? As they were laying in scanners. Of course, they could, agreed to this. And what did they found? People who were normal controls, their brain did not like that. It was like Christmas tree lit up. People with borderline personality disorder, damping effect. They have a different brain. So your child is using it probably as a solution if it works for your child. Sometimes they can try it out and don't like it, and luckily don't continue to do this. But sometimes it actually fits, and this is the most effective thing you can do in the moment to decrease your emotional arousal. Unfortunately, it's immediate. Drugs, alcohol, forget skills, right? Does not act that fast. So recognize it for what it is, a solution to the problem, and try to deal with problems. And of course, figure out, what else you can offer your child as a solution. So always, when your child comes to you with something, start with validation. Make sure you tell your child, well, listen, of course, once they tell you what's going on, I get it. I understand why you would do this. Is so hard for you. Validation first. And then you need to lead your child, hopefully with questioning as opposed to direct instruction on what to do. Don't tell them what to do. Ask them, what do you think would be helpful? What do you think we can do differently next time? Practice skills with them on a daily basis, right? We talk about it. All of these things that your children are doing, their programs. This is a biological computer. Anytime we think about something or do something, we write a program in our brain. And what happens is then we continue to use the same programs, the same solutions over and over and over and over again, and making those programs very hard. And then that's what our brain gives us next time we need a solution. So these solutions, like be that screaming, yelling, suicidality, self-harm, drug, alcohol use, these are programs that have been coded and recoded for thousands and hundreds of thousands of times, depending on how many times the person is doing it on a daily basis and how long they have lived. Do you think just talking about what to do is going to make a difference? No, this is knowing what to do. It's necessary, but not sufficient. You also need to gain the capacity to do it. How do you gain the capacity to do it in this particular situation? Practice use of skills with your children on a daily basis in hypothetical situations. Let's pretend your friend sends you to hell, breaks up with you, and you feel suicidal. You feel that you want to self-harm. What are you going to do? I'm going to breathe, use eyes, walk away, whatever, right? And then you role play. You're pretending to be the friend, and the child is going through the entire skill. The pretend mode is you're pretending to be the friend, but the skill needs to be done in real. You need to write a program of real skills use. Not like I'm going to breathe. No, actual paced breathing. 1, 2, 3 in, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 out. 1, 2, 3 in, one, whatever, right? So this is what you need to do. One more time. Don't punish. Don't make a drama out of this. Be as calm as possible. You're the protector. You need to be in control. If you freak out yourself, you're losing control, right? No, protector. Being a protector means what? I know what I'm doing. I am in control. I am not afraid of you. How can you protect somebody that you're afraid of? And your child cannot be afraid of you too, right? So your child came to you with a problem, you're not punishing, you're not freaking out, you're validating, you're asking your child what to be done next time, right? Instead, you're coming up with the solution, you're practicing it immediately, and hopefully giving your children some kind of reward for it, maybe praise, maybe reinforcement via points or whatever it is that you're doing. And then you're practicing it every single day in pretend mode, because you need to write those programs over and over and over again. Override the previous ones of I'm upset, I freak out. Instead, I'm upset, I use a skill. Over and over and over again. This is the first principle of dialectic: quantity into quality.
There's been a few questions regarding just like early childhood and remembering situations from early childhood. So one of the questions is it necessary to talk with a child about situations that have happened in the past and turned out to be traumatic for the child? Should the parent initiate the conversation or wait until the child remembers themselves?
That is a complicated question. I don't think that I will be able to answer it and give you a formula on that. Now, you have to be very careful with that. You don't want to put in your child's brain memories that the child doesn't have. Because if you do that, then they will, take those memories and make them their own as if they actually remember it. You don't want to traumatize your child even more. So this is a very thin line to walk. Of course, if you know that your child, there's some cues that your child remembers it, and you know that there's something happened traumatic and your kid is indeed suffering and has some sort of PTSD. Number one, please consult a psychologist. It will be much better. But outside of that, yes, talk to a kid about this. Validate, validate, validate. Let your child get it out. Don't suppress. Nothing needs to be suppressed. If you suppress an emotion, this is a highway to clinical level depression, any suppression of the emotion. When we're teaching skills aren't about suppression of the emotion. It's about expression of the emotion in a constructive manner. That's all it is. Instead of screaming, I'm actually using eyes, I am breathing, whatever it may be, right? That's not suppression of the emotion. Absolutely not. But what we do, especially with traumatic memories, we don't want to go there. We don't want to touch it because it feels extremely uncomfortable and painful. So what we do, we suppress it, push it away. And this is like a cyst. It keeps growing and growing and growing and growing. That's all it is. And no healing can occur this way. It's only going to, express itself in anxiety, in depression, in avoidance, right? In all other kind of things, in trying to gain control by trying to control other people with, screaming and yelling. That's a ways of control, right? So for the healing to begin, you need to cut the cyst open so all of that pus will come out, and then the killing will begin. So you need to first provide your child with the environment in which your child can trust you, that you indeed will understand, that you will indeed will accept, that you indeed will validate, so that they are comfortable with opening up about something so traumatic for them. So remember, we talked about dialectic, and this is a very important thing. How to create the environment in which the child will experience you as this protector, that he will come to you with the problems, that will come to you and talk to you if trauma happened, so that you can talk about this and get this structured, right? The healing will begin. Dialectic means that two things, one of the second law of dialectic means that things are not the same. They're complementary. Day, night, man, woman, life, death, yin, yang, good, bad, right? And if we want to live life that is balanced so that we don't get stuck, how do we get stuck? One-sidedness. As soon as we are one-sided, that's it, we're stuck. For us to be flexible, we need to always walk the line of the dialectic. And always, by the nature of complementarity, the sides that you're going to be walking and you're going to be upholding are always going to be one side stable, one side flexible. Always. Whatever you're going to touch, that's how it's going to be. On the parenting stand. So there's a dialectic of the parenting stand. Stable side. I love you just because you exist. I accept everything that you do. By the definition of acceptance being, I don't like whatever that you're doing, screaming, yelling, all of these things. I don't like any of them, and I am accepting them. If you like something, you don't need to accept it, right? And what is the mechanism of acceptance? Validation, understanding. I know why my kid is screaming at me, because I did not give him ice cream that he wanted. He got really upset. I don't approve it. I don't support it. And I understand it. That's what validation is all about. So, stable side, I love you just because you exist. I accept everything that you do. I don't like it, but I accept it. I don't fight reality. I'm not criticizing. I'm not judging. I'm validating. And no wiggle room. That's the control. That's the protection. If it's 1 hour of electronics per day, it's 1 hour. It's not 1 hour and 1 minute. 1 hour and 25 seconds. It's 1 hour. But then you need to be the holder of contingencies. You need to have a capacity with one click on your own device to turn their devices into bricks. You need to have that control. Otherwise, you're going to lose your parental authority, right? You're going to argue with them. You're going to arm wrestle with them. Forget it. As soon as you do that, your parental authority goes out of the window. Remember, parents, you have all the power. You are the kings and queens. You don't ask your subjects whether or not they want something, don't want something, will do it, will not do it. You tell them. That's how you're in control. Of course, for that, you need to be in control of the contingencies. Otherwise, your parental authority goes out of the window, right? So one more time, stable. I love you just because you exist. I accept everything that you do. I don't judge. I validate. No wiggle room. And I take in information when I make decisions. I take in the perspective of my child when I make decisions. I am doing things with my child's best interest in mind, not mine, my child, right? Why is that so important? We owe nothing to anybody in the world. You don't owe to your spouses. You don't owe to your friends. You don't know anything, right? We only owe to two people, ourselves, to love ourselves as we are, to learn about ourselves, our talents, our predispositions, our interests, right? And to self-actualize our talents. We owe to ourselves and we owe to our children. We made them. Now you owe to them, but not what they want. We owe them what they need. And there's, I call it three fingers of parenting, right? A lot of the time in this transaction, we have, whatever is happening, my gain, child's gain. For example, reinforcement, right? It's my gain, child's gain. Everybody's happy. My loss, child's gain. My loss means I don't want to do it. It's hard. Example of that, ignoring. You don't want to do it. It makes everything so much harder. A child may have a huge temper outburst because of that for 3 hours. My loss, child's gain. Over time, if you continue to ignore, that behavior is going to extinguish. And the third one, my gain, child's loss. This is when I am, retaliating. That is when I am, accommodating. So all of these things. So we don't want to do this. Most parenting needs to happen. My gain, child's gain. My loss, child's gain. That's it. Child's gain, child's gain. So this side, again, I take all of this information into account. It's with the best interest of my child. And I'm taking the child's perspective into account. And I change my decisions and ruling. When new information comes in, I'm flexible. I'm not rigid, right? And no wiggle room, right? That's the sense of parenting. Okay. I'm not sure what the question was by now, but I hope that I answered it. Oh, yeah, the question was yes. And then your children will indeed come to you and be comfortable in offering you all of this very vulnerable, very intimate information, right? A lot of the time, parents don't understand when we are accommodators, when we're servants, children treat us as that. They look down at you and they abuse you. A lot of the time, what happens is whatever the children are doing to their parents can only be seen as verbal and physical abuse. And a lot of the time, parents have their own PTSD out of the relationship with these kids. They have complex trauma as well. 100%, I understand that, right? But the thing is that we contribute to that because if we become servants, because we want to avoid all of that, it's very hard. I fully understand. But then our children treat us as that. And you'll see it. As soon as you become the king and queen of the household, as soon as you are the protector, as soon as you're in control with an ability to hold the contingencies, everything is going to change. Your children are going to indeed treat you with respect because now you have parental authority. You have no parental authority when you're a servant. What do you want?
Okay. If my child is acting extremely different and distant in recent weeks, but refuses to talk about their lives, how can I get them to talk without making them feel confronted or attacked?
Oh, it's very hard to do. And listen, we may have the bestest relationship with our kids. We indeed can have the stance of I love you, I validate you, and I'm your protector and I'm in control and all of that wonderful stuff. And especially when they're adolescents, they are transitioning into this new period in which they are supposed to, naturally, it's pre-programmed, to get away from their family and into the outer world and attach to somebody else. Nature made that so to prevent incest, right? Intermarriage, right? With their own family members. That's why we are biologically, driven to detach from our families at the adolescence and venture into the other world. Your kids will come back to you when they're young adults because that period is done. They will come back to you because in that period, other people may, even other adults may become the people that they go to, right? And of course, their peers and friends, they go to them. And we look at them and say, oh my God, I lost my kid. No, 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 you did not lose your kid. The kid will come back to you when they're adult, young adult, because that period is done, right? And they can go back and merge with their family again. So I'm not sure again how to fully answer your question, because is this your child, just, getting away from the family if they're like an adolescent, and, whether or not you're trying to help them, whatever, they may not be willing to talk to you. But the thing is that do they have other people they can talk to? Maybe of a teacher or parent who's the parent of a friend of the child. So maybe you can alert those people and see maybe they can help. And of course, whatever it is that you are doing, offer. Don't push. Offer. Hey, I've been noticing that you've been feeling sad lately. Listen, whatever it is, I'm there for you. And whatever it is, I can see how hard it is for you. So you don't even know what's going on, but you're already validating, you're already providing support. So drop it. Seed, seed, seed. We are not in control of anything in life. I don't even control getting to the bathroom. If I want to get to the bathroom, right, I am getting up and then a big meteor crashes on my house. I'm just a bunch of molecules. Right? What did I control? Nothing. There's a string of variables that need to happen just like that for anything to occur. How many variables are there in any event for any outcome? Infinite number of variables that need to happen just like that for any outcome. So any outcome is not ours. We can be happy about outcomes. We can be unhappy about outcomes, but they don't belong to us. What belongs to us is what we contributed, the process. Because yes, one of the variables in all of the string of variables was me, right? If I did not decide to go and use the bathroom, I will never reach it, right? But I'm just one, very important one, but one, right? So us, what we own is only process, what we contributed, what we did, not what we got, right? So the same with kids. We can control them, we can force them, but we can't control them. Our job is to seed. Seed with skills, seed with talking about your own experiences, seed with modeling, right? Us doing the same thing that we want our children to do. Seed with whatever it is that you want to seed. But outcome is germination. For germination to occur, the soil needs to be ripe. When that soil is ripe, you don't know, you're not in control of it, and your child is not in control of it, right? But once the soil becomes ripe, seeds already need to be there. So continue to seed and don't attach to the outcome. Don't look at whether your child is responding, not responding. That is a recipe for disaster, because you're just going to say, oh, but it's not working, whatever, and you just drop the ball. No. If you know exactly what you're doing, if you know that what you're doing fits that problem and is a solution for that problem, just keep doing it. Seed. Don't look at what he's doing. Just keep doing quantity. If you don't get the outcome is a qualitative jump. It means you did not seed enough. More quantity. And at some point, qualitative jump will occur. Of course, if you know that what you're doing indeed matches the function of the behavior that you're trying to correct. Okay. So in this situation, keep offering, keep validating, keep being open to conversation, establish the relationship in which child sees you as a protector and knows that if they go to you, they indeed will get validation and not, criticism and judgment, and you're not going to lose your marbles by having your own, oh my God, right? No drama. Otherwise, you're not a protector. Protectors cannot have dramas, right? And of course, cannot have their own adult temper tantrum about things. And then one day, if needed, if the child is indeed in the position to come to you, they'll come to you. Or maybe somebody else.
All right. There's been a few questions and comments just about you using these practices in schools. One person noted that she's a teacher and she has used child DBT skills with managing behaviors in her classroom, and she found it very productive and useful. She is wondering if there are any, handouts for like a school setting, or if you can, direct any to any resources for using child DBT in a school setting.
Okay, so I have a confession to make. So I have a contract with Guilford Press to write the DBT. There are actually two books, one DBT manual for clinicians and one handouts for clients. That book was supposed to be out in 2018. Ain't done yet. It is what it is. It is what it is. And because of the contract, I cannot freely disseminate information. However, I have one caveat. I can give those handouts to therapists who are being trained in DBT for children, and those therapists who have been trained in DBT for children, of course, can use it for clinical purposes and give it to their clients, and from there transfer to the teachers or whoever it is that's going to be talking about this individual client. This is not something that they will be able to use with all of the clients because of the restrictions of contracts and all the clauses and all these legal things. But the reason why you don't have those handouts is me. It's all my fault. And I sincerely apologize for it. And I will do my best to indeed get this book out as soon as possible. I promise. I'm working on it literally as we speak, any moment I can.
So in regards to that, and I do want to note, we just have about like 5 to 7 minutes left. How can we address issues within schools or at schools that discriminate or isolate kids with emotional dysregulation?
Oh my goodness, that is such a problem. One of the things that's happening with children with emotional dysregulation, sensitivity, they're very misunderstood. They're misunderstood. What they need, and believe me, this is one of the best things that you can do for your child, be that in the relationship with him at home, or teach it to the anybody who is also in care of your kid, babysitter, right, or a teacher, whatever. Please use them validation. If you use validation it's like a magic wand. It's a magic. It has so many functions. And of course, the most important one for us, it's a foundation for change, right? Before we can get the person to change, we need to first validate. I'm not going to get into why and how. Please watch my prior videos. I have it all already there on YouTube. But one of the functions of validation is also emotional regulation. And there's so many studies on that. When we say to another person, oh my goodness, I get it. And you can actually see it physically. You see this kind of like, and if you hit it, of course, right? If indeed you understood what was going on, and the person like, oh, can you imagine what's happening? And you're like, oh, whoa, that's terrible. I would feel terrible too. They deflate, right? They deflate. You feel it, you see it. What happened? A moment of emotional regulation. And at that moment, your child is so much more likely to indeed access wise mind, to figure out what to do instead. They don't need to defend themselves against you and insist that what they were right and you're wrong and whatever. None of that is happening, right? When we start to argue with other people, all we get is fight. Because when we argue with other people, we're making them angry and defensive. No change is happening. No, validate. So a lot of the time we do specific programs for school, right, for these children, of school programs. But the most important thing that the teachers need to learn how to validate. Also, give them one or two skills that you know your child is using the most, and it works for the kid. Teach it to the teacher or to the school psychologist so that they can direct and cue the kid to use that skill. And of course, they need to tell you about that skill being used so you can reinforce it at home, right? With praise and points and whatever it is. Another thing that is happening at schools is when children come to the nurse or whatever and they say, I self-harmed or have suicidal ideation. What happens with that parents are called immediately and child is sent home. I understand, it's kind of scary and school does not want to take responsibility on something bad happening to the kid. However, the very first thing that I do when I start doing conversations with school personnel and teachers and whatever, I say, don't do this. Please, you're reinforcing that behavior. You're making it more unsafe. You're not helping that child and you're not helping yourself with that, right? Because this is going to escalate. If it worked before, was just me threatening to self-harm and I was sent home. Now I will self-harm. And then I will actually talk about suicidal ideation. Then I will actually try to do something, right? So actually, you're not solving your problem in terms of your safety, right? Your own safety, right? You can be still sued for it because what you're doing is you're increasing the risk because these things escalate. If a child comes to you, are you a nurse, a psychologist, a teacher, and says, I self-harm? They'll